I'm going to try and show you the golf practice setup that I have. So the launch monitor is already in place. This is a Samsung tablet that I use, and normally I don't mount it off center like this. It would normally be centered, but the camera's here and I want to, for veracity purposes, use the selfie camera in this video. And so I need that not to be obscured. I'm just in my garage picking up the practice gear, which is a bucket of balls and my golf clubs and some alignment sticks. Interesting. The garage door motor interferes with the Wi-Fi, so the launch monitor got disconnected from the network as I was getting the clubs and so forth out of the garage. So I use alignment sticks to make sure that my hitting is aligned with what's the launch monitor thinks is straight, because otherwise it's going to read as not straight balls which would have been straight in the real world. I'm just going to see, I don't know if this is going to ultimately work, but I'm going to put this microphone on the aimed at the hitting area to see if we get some nice golf ball sounds. Okay, let's try you again. So none of what I'm showing you here is particularly new part of the process. I would always have been putting a launch monitor near my hitting mat. I would always have been hoping that it will connect to my Wi-Fi network. I would always have had this kind of trouble because okay, like this stuff is not new and it's certainly not improved. Are we going to work or are we not going to work? We are going to work. Okay. So now I'm going to start the screen recording on the Samsung tablet. So this is going to record my the microphone and the camera off of the tablet, as well as you've got that camera there. So I can't prove to you that I'm not cheating. You're going to have to trust me at some point. If I wanted to do this with effects, sure, I could probably do that, or someone who's skilled with effects anyway could do that. So you're just going to have to trust in my integrity or in my incompetence in the domain of digital cinema effects that this is not being faked. This is just real. So the only bit of effecting that I believe I'm capable of doing is I will have put a black square over the launch monitor so you can't see what the brand is. There's 2 or 3 reasons for that. So one is, what I've done here is definitely not how the manufacturer intended for it to be used. They want you to use their own software, and so having written my own software for it is perhaps something they won't like, and if they don't know who they are, they can't really object as much as if they do know who they are. Secondly, you might interpret what I'm going to say, you might interpret as a bit of a diss on the original launch monitor software, which is not my intent. So I don't want you to feel bad about this particular brand. I've used multiple launch monitors over the years. They all have the same quirks I was trying to address. So don't take it that way. And so basically what I'm saying is this video and the software I've made, about the software I've made and the software itself, are to address problems that are common to all launch monitor systems I've ever encountered. And so I don't want it to become specific, and so that's why I'm concealing it. Anyway, so I'll just give you a brief tour of the app here. So this is showing the last shot I hit before starting this recording, and we can see I've got a side projection of the I've got a side projection of the shot here. I've got the plan projection, so like this is how it went up in the air. This is how it went looking down upon it. Then I've got the advanced features, so if it had landed above the level that it actually did, the ground wasn't flat and level. If I was hitting to a higher tier, where it would have, the difference in carry and rollout that would have caused. Then we have in a 10 or 20 mile an hour wind, but you can sort of interpolate that yourself. What would the effect on the flight be? So we can see here I'd have lost like 18 yards if it was into a headwind of 20 miles an hour, and I'd only gain like 4.5 yards if it's with a tailwind of 20 miles an hour. And then this is what I call the slope rose. So from the point of where it would roll to on flat and level terrain, if you're into an upslope, how much less does it go? How much further does it go if it's onto a downslope? So those are just some of the visualizations that I wanted to have. And then on the left here, we've got the core statistics, and then I can choose which club I'm hitting and record some details about how the quality of the strike, which we'll come on to why that's what I'm primarily using that for shortly. So yeah, and then just at the top here we've got the system is ready and the launch monitor's state of charge is 96%. So I'm going to stop waffling and hit a few shots. I will be hitting this 9-iron. The first shots of the day will be terrible, so I probably won't talk through those until I've hit a good full shot, and then we'll come back to the app and discuss things. So without further waffling, I shall build my grip and try and hit this ball. So one of the reasons for this, I wanted it to be a faster experience. I'll say that was 3/4 and thin. Yeah. Store. So one of the reasons for making this software was to try and get it to be faster to tell me what the outcome of the shot was. So I don't want to not have to wait for it to animate the ball as though it were real time. I want the answers delivered to me as instantly as I can, and the reason for that is, as I'm practicing, I'm trying to learn learn to play better golf. So that was a good one. Very slightly toe side, but not too bad. Come on. Yeah, so this is much slower than it has been the last few times I've tried it. There's something to do with the weather or something else going on that's making the Wi-Fi connection less strong. I can see in the status LEDs of the launch monitor that's where the problem lies. I'm just going to reclamp this Galaxy tab here. Okay. It's meaning this is not the experience that I usually get, which is unfortunate because I'm trying to demonstrate the experience I usually get. A little bit thin sounding, no mark on the so the hope here was that I would strike the ball, hold my finish, and at this point that I look back to the tablet to see what's going on, the information I want is already there. That seemed like a good one. So, and there I'm pretty much getting that. So I'm not having to wait the 5 or 6 seconds of animation time to see watch the ball flight in the air and then see where it lands. I can look at this much faster than that and get an idea of whether I got the flight I was hoping for. Now, the reason that's important to me is I think that I learn... did I press store? Maybe not. I think that I learn better the faster I get the feedback. And so giving me feedback about my shot 7 seconds after I've struck it in terms of where it's going to have gone doesn't let me learn as well as if I am seeing that information faster. So basically I'm going to have in my mind, this is the outcome I want for the ball. I'm going to hit the ball, and then I'm going to pretty much as quickly as I can look at the screen and see if that was the outcome I got. And the shorter I can make that cycle, and as I say, usually when I'm using this, it is fast enough that by the time I have got eyes back to the screen, the information's already there. And that is transformatively better learning experience for improving my golf. So I make a prediction about what shot I'm going to hit, then I hit the shot, and then I see if I got that, and I can learn. It's not particularly that it's a faster learning experience. It seems like it shouldn't be faster in theory, but in practice, with that 7 seconds of animation delay before you find out the answer, I was finding that I get a strong feeling about, did I hit the ball nicely? Like, did it feel nice off the face and whatever? And that was a much stronger input into whether I feel like what I'm trying to learn from hitting the ball than the actual outcome. Whereas, of course, on the real golf course, what you care about is the outcome. It doesn't matter, shouldn't matter if it felt horrible or nice to hit, if you get the outcome that you want. And it feeling nice and it being a good shot are only they're correlated for sure and positively correlated, but it's not 100% that the what feels good to hit is going to be necessarily the best way to train for hitting a good shot on the course. Like, for example, on like a real concrete example that most golfers will know, of this mat, if I hit it a bit fat, it doesn't feel particularly bad, I just lose distance. If I hit it great, it feels great. If I hit it a bit thin, it feels quite bad in the club. But of the three shot types, obviously you'd want the good strike every time. But if you could choose to I'll have a good strike or I'll hit it a little bit thin on the golf course, you'd take that every time over I'll have a good strike or I'll hit it a little bit fat on the golf course. And so it's that kind of thing which we're seeing the outcome as nearly as rapidly as I have the information on the strike is able to help me hack my brain into thinking that a thin shot is good compared to the fat shot option. And that I think is what really I'm trying to improve here. That correlation between outcome and swing. So we're now going to try a bit more of an ambitious club, which I'm very hesitant to suggest I will hit well during the course of this demo, but we'll see. So that was 6-iron, I would say thin. Stop. Anyway, I'm gonna move the tablet back into the centre of its thing, which is going to slightly obscure your view. Ooh. I have to edit that bit out, but it will mean it won't unbalance itself as I'm playing, and then I'll carry on hitting these balls and hopefully get a good 6-iron out of it. But at this point we're just recording for no reason my golf practice session. Okay, that was a good one. Felt horrible during setup. And was excellent, so there you go. So I want to show you the windrows of this one, because I know those longer distance shots with lower lofted clubs have really interesting behaviour. So you can see here, carried 177 over flat and level ground in no wind. If we look at the windrows, these grid lines are 10 yards, so 10, 20, 30, 45 yards less. So instead of 175, 180, you're going to be getting, I'd be getting, 130 yards, which is more of a strong 9 iron, weak 8 iron carry number from a 6 iron, this is a super game improvement one, so it's really aggressively low lofted. And we can see also into the headwinds, with the tailwind, that we actually go less far with a 20 mile an hour tailwind than we do with a 10 mile an hour tailwind, and we're at most going to only be getting like 8 or 7 or 8 yards. And this is part of, like, where I play in Scotland, it's generally quite windy most days, and so part of this windrose is to help me understand how to forgive myself for getting the distance estimates wrong, and also to improve my capability of estimating distances correctly. Also, the course where I play, there's a lot of elevation changes, there's a lot of sloped fairways, so knowing this 180 yard carry number or 177 yard carry number, so suppose I would hit that exact shot on the golf course, I could hit it into a 20 foot, is that feet? I actually don't remember if this is feet or yards. 20 yard, let's say, elevation height change. There's holes which are like that, or where the approach shot at least will be like that, which will cost me 10 yards of distance. I could easily hit it into a 20 mile an hour headwind, which is going to cost me 35 yards of distance. And I could be hitting it into an upslope, which is going to cost me like 6 yards of total distance. So I could go from this 204 yard total distance down to 140 yards very easily with depending on the conditions, or I could be hitting it on one of the downhill fairways. This could go to 30 to 40 yards, that's a huge, that's a 100-yard swing. That's 10 clubs of gapping in most conventional gapping theory systems, which is, I hadn't realised that the conditions were as big an effect as that. And again, the point of this application is for me to learn to play golf better by at least appreciating what those different factors do in a bit of a more real way than in a more real way than trying to use some pros heuristics of, yes, this is a 2 club wind or whatever, because that might be true for them, but I think wind has a very different effect at the speed of golf I'm playing than how they're playing it. And also, like, the fairways are different on my local course than a PGA Tour course or whatever. I think that's fairly obvious. But also, like, the way that they acquired that knowledge of this is how to adjust for the conditions is by playing a lot of golf in a lot of conditions. I'm 45. I'm not able to play as much golf as a 17-year-old trainee pro golfer would be able to. I'm not fit enough. I don't have the time with the other things I have to do in my life. So this is a way of hopefully giving me enough information to help me build that intuition a lot faster. And anyway, I'm now going to try something very stupid, which is hitting a 4 iron on camera. And because it is in my training schedule for this morning, but probably you guys won't be seeing this footage because I don't expect any of these shots to be any good. And my launch monitor is still having Wi-Fi issues, which is vexing. That was heavy. So you can see here what I was talking about, that fat 4-iron shot, this is a terrible outcome. If I'd thinned it, like bladed it out of the middle piece there, it would have gone much closer to what a good 4-iron shot would do, but it would have felt as a strike much worse. So this is why I built this system, was to try and close the gap between what I can learn and what I want to be learning, what's easy to learn and what I want to learn. So that didn't feel dramatically better than the previous shot, but I think we can all agree it was dramatically better than the previous shot. So it's still not great. I don't have the speed to get the height you should need from this club, so I probably shouldn't have it in the bag. But there you go. If we go back to, so yeah, you can see my 6-iron on a good strike carries further and better total than this is probably as good as I can hit that 4-iron, and it's just not got the height, it's not got the carry distance, it's not got the total distance, because I can't swing the clubs fast enough. That was a thin heel with a hybrid. And so here we can see there are cases where you can hit these numbers aren't probably real, but the backspin of 10,000, I don't know that I believe that. Launch angle of negative, yeah. So, and that means that the flight model I built can't compute the outcome of that shot, which is fair enough. In the real world, that's going to be something chaotic looking, and that's a case where I don't really need to see the ball flight to know that I don't want to hit that shot. That was a little bit thin and toey. But we can see a better outcome from that. That felt relatively unpleasant, but it carried 160 yards, it totaled 204, and in most places on the golf course, that would be a totally fine outcome for hitting this club. I'm not trying to hit thins or fats or anything particularly, I'm just swinging it and seeing what happens. That felt a bit thin, and there's kind of no trace of mat on the club, so I will put that down as thin but good. But again, I'm not too annoyed with that shot in the real world. For distance, the direction needs some work, obviously, but most of the times I'd be hitting hybrid, that would be fairly acceptable outcome. I mean, obviously, if you were paying attention a few minutes ago, you've seen that those are also similar numbers to a 6 iron, so why would I hit a 3 hybrid at all when I can get the same numbers in kind of slightly more reliable form from a 6 iron. It's gone very left. Felt okay though. And there we see very, very, very thin. Like, so obviously don't get much on the landing height plot when its peak height above the ground was 2.5 feet. Wind effect is very strange. Slope effect is pretty strange as well. Yeah. The ball a little bit further forward in my stance and see if that lets me hit a good one. Okay, so still a big hook, but that's more like it as a thing. I need to work on my club path, I think, and face control to get this left side under control. But this is the shot I would hope to get with that 3 hybrid on the course most of the time. I say hope, not expect, because that's how it is. But and that might finally be a good one. The lines of the trails the map leaves on the back side of that one were beautifully straight, which suggests I've got delivery under control. Right, good shot. Peak height's nice, speed excellent, carrying 192, total 220. So if we're going to hit that shot, there's definitely a reason to have this club in the bag. If I'm going to hit the miss hits that go left and go the distance of a 6 iron, that's still actually okay. It's better than the 4 iron where my miss hits were going almost nowhere. And let's have a look at the wind and slope plot. So here with a good strike like that, you on that 3 hybrid, you get a much more easy to understand what the effect of the weather and terrain is going to be than do with the bad shots. Now I'm going to try what's labelled pitching wedge, which I think is some kind of 43 degree club, which in my other sets of clubs is called a 9 iron, but here we are. So that's an interesting example of what I've been saying. I'm pretty sure I hit the mat first with that. Yeah, maybe not. I do have the problem with knowing whether I hit the mat first or the ball first. It can be difficult. So I don't often take a divot in the real world. I've got very shallow delivery, so if I'm hitting it well, I don't take a divot. If I'm hitting it badly, it tends to be really fat because we've got quite a lot of potential contact time with the shallow delivery. So I'm going to mark that one as good and good because its numbers look like a good one, but it did feel like I I hit the mat, probably at the same time as the ball or very slightly after. But yeah, let's have a look. So we got interesting wind effect, and you'll notice with these, I think if I was to get fit for clubs again now, I might end up with a slightly different set makeup than this, because you'd like to see a bigger landing angle off the pitching wedge than you was getting off the 3 hybrid, or at least similar. And so that was fat bit in the middle. Because it doesn't have perhaps as much stopping power as you'd like to see from a wedge. Anyway, on we go. The other problem I'm dealing with is I've been hitting off mats and going by feel, to the extent that was a good strike, but it felt thin. But I can see from the mark of the ball on the face that it was in fact good, and I've just got to retrain myself for what a good hit actually should feel like. So yeah. Anyway, I suppose I could talk about how the system works. So this launch monitor connects to the Wi-Fi. I can also connect it to this tablet via USB if I want to operate it that way, which I would do if I was out and about. My home server has software on it that talks to the launch monitor and is continuously scanning for it. So as soon as I turn the launch monitor on, it will connect to it. It will then store all of the launch parameters. That was fat. It will store all of the launch parameters for every shot I hit into a database. There's another process that watches for new launch parameters being written to the database, and that process is running some of the flight simulations, and then there's another thing that's sending those launch parameters off to this app if this app is connected. And as you've seen, I can scroll back through previous shots, and that goes all the way back across sessions. Then the app, as you've seen, lets me say what club I used, what the contact was like. That's one of the other things with the and what swing I did. It's one of the other things with the commercial launch monitor software that I didn't love, is that you have to say what club you were using before you hit the ball, and it's relatively difficult to correct for it afterwards. That was actually pretty nice. So I explicitly wanted to be able to set the club's information after I struck the ball, and I wanted to be able to say whether I thought it was a good or a bad contact, rather than having this sort of what you do with the other. Oh, and also what size of swing I used, because if you with the other software I've used, you've got this crude option of like pretend that a half swing is a different club or something, which I don't like, or you've got to and your expected behaviour when you've hit a not great strike is just to delete that shot, which I don't want to do. I want to keep that information that I hit it badly. I think that was fat. I want to keep that information that I hit it and it was bad, so that I can get statistics on, okay, you hit it, it was bad. So that in my gapping chart I can say, when you hit it well, this is what's going to happen. But your chances of hitting it well are like 4 times out of 10 or whatever it may be. So then if I'm facing that choice of, what do I attempt here? If I've got a thing that says, yeah, you can hit 6-iron and it will carry that lake, I can make a sensible decision about whether to hit 6-iron and try and carry that lake. Because knowing that 6-iron will get over the lake if you hit it great is all very interesting. But will 6-iron carry the lake on the strike you're about to do is a very different question. So, we'll look at the yardage book in a moment. So, I guess I should explain the flight model that's used for all of these calculations is to my own design. That show you. That's what it should look like. So this is a good strike, middle and middle. And so now we know that if I hit a middle and middle 52, I should expect to see 84, 85 yards carry. That landing angle 53 is quite nice. Goodish amount of spin. You'd want more if you were trying to play competitively, but this is what I've got, right? And we see that compared to the longer clubs, it's a bit less affected by the wind, and the tailwind always helps it go further, or makes it go further. Whether that's helpful or not is, of course, situationally dependent. So yeah, but the I'm going to pack up now. But the flight model that's rendering these projections is, as I say, it's my own thing. It is not just a flight model. Obviously, it has modelling for bouncing and rolling balls on the fairway. The flight model aerodynamics is based on the best published scientific literature about golf ball aerodynamics that I could find. I believe the ball model is actually based on a TaylorMade TP5, but most tour type golf balls overall behave basically the same in the air. Obviously, the launch parameters are based on measurements of reality, so whatever ball I hit is going to have the energy transfer that it really has. And then the aerodynamic flight model that the scientific literature deals with factors of like humidity, temperature, air pressure, and so forth. I added the capability to deal with wind speed. Wind behaves in a very interesting way if it's, as you will have observed if you play golf, the wind you feel at ground level is much lower than the wind the ball feels, as it were, up at its peak height. And so what my flight model does is it uses the observed wind speed at 10 meters altitude, which is what many weather stations in this area attempt to capture. And then there's a model for the shear effects as the wind gets close to the ground, how it reduces the in intensity, or as it gets higher in the air, how it tends to increase. And as I say, my flight model will do those. I won't say correctly, because I don't know that there is an absolute standard of correctness. I don't know that wind behaves in a completely uniform way the world over. But the height of the air above the ground is considered in the calculations of the effective wind speed at every separate step of the ball flight calculation. And that's based on research data on wind shear at altitudes. So that's in there. I have the capability, but I'm not currently using it, to model wind gusts. Okay, back in the indoors now. The ball flight is, in many respects, the easy part of this. You've got simple algorithms for, if it's here, what's the apparent airspeed, which is a combination of wind speed and the ball's motion. And then it's a simple numerical integration to find what the next step is. Where it gets much more difficult, and the reason that's simple is because of great work that's been done studying the Earth's atmosphere and the motion of golf balls through that normal atmosphere under varying conditions of temperature, humidity, air pressure, which is ultimately all that changes worldwide. So I'm able to take that work, which was originally done in America, and just change the numbers to be the conditions I have in Scotland today, and I can get the correct answers for how the ball will fly through the air. Where it gets much more difficult is the modelling of impact on the ground and then what happens afterwards, so the bounce and roll of the golf ball after its carry, in the terminology of golfers. So there's well studied how golf balls bounce and roll on turf models, but it's much less obvious how to get from the sort of central reference point that was used there onto the actual conditions I encounter in the real world. So what I've done is I went out to my golf course on the flatter holes, hit driver, which I was hitting relatively well that day, came back home, measured the total distance using my GPS watch for those driver shots, came back home, put the I hit driver consistently enough that I didn't feel I needed to actually measure those shots with the launch monitor, and I don't like holding up the pace of play with the launch monitor in the real world, so didn't do that. But I said, okay, my median drive from the last session was, for the median good driver hit, was carrying this and then rolling out. In the real world, I can observe that my median drive presumably carries what it should carry in those atmospheric conditions. Obviously, I had to put the observed atmospheric conditions into the flight model, and then I was tuning the fairway parameters to make to a combination where it made intuitive sense of what I was looking at, and also where it where I was getting the correct average total distance for those shots. So that's how I tuned the fairway model. I should talk about why I wanted to make my own flight and fairway models. It's about being able to tweak all of those parameters that I can tweak now, for the most part, and also because I don't know what the priorities were when the one that was built into the original launch monitor software was written. I don't know if, when you're doing numerical integration, you've got a trade-off between accuracy and speed to make. For various reasons, I think they chose speed of calculation over accuracy. The launch monitor I've got has been around for more than a decade, or the software the software that drives it has been around for more than a decade, and so it may well have been that they made a great decision for, it needs to be able to run on an iPhone from 12 years ago, which would have been a very reasonable thing for them to optimize for when they released it 10, 12 years ago. But for me now, I've got much faster processing power, so I would probably trade off a few. I tolerate it being a bit slower because, let's be clear, if I run this algorithm on my main computer, it takes 5 milliseconds to do all of the ball flight for a shot. So slower is relative, but that's 1/3 of a display frame's time, so it's not costing me anything really. But if I was measuring it against a low performance computer from a decade ago, that difference of 3 milliseconds or 5 milliseconds on my machine here might well have been the difference between 300 milliseconds, which is tolerable, and half a second, which is less tolerable. But because I don't know what they chose, I don't really know how much I can trust it. But it was more about, I want to be able to model the same shot in multiple different conditions and get the answers on the screen pretty much in, or close to, real time. It takes less time for my software to render the side view and the plan view, and then the different height railroad lines, and then the wind rows, and then the terrain rows. All of that information I have, and I can be looking at before the original software has finished animating the ball flying out from the flying out in 3D. And that's true whether it's the software I was previously using or any of the other commercially available ones. They all seem to love to animate the whole thing before they will tell you the results. And anyway, I built this because I wanted to know if removing that 6-second delay between I hit it and I know whether I wanted to hit that shot or not would make a qualitative difference to my golf practice and how rapidly I can learn. Now that I've built it, I can tell you it does make a difference, and in fact the magnitude of difference is much larger than I thought it would be, and it has helped me already to understand what it is I'm trying to do on the course and whether I should be happy with the shot I just hit when I'm practicing. I did say I was going to show you I did say that the other, I hope I said, let me repeat it in case I didn't. The other reason that I'm capturing the whether I hit it well or not is to make what we call a gapping chart in the world of golf. So, or a yardage book where you have a list of, if I hit this club, it will go this far, or I expect it to go this far. So then when you're on course, you can use your laser rangefinder or your GPS watch or whatever to find out how far you need to hit it, and then just look up in the yardage book what club you need to hit to and what swing to go that distance. So let's see if I can. I'll record the screen of my phone. This is how my yardage book looks. I have the club, what swing it was, how far it carried, the total distance, and how far left or right I should aim. And at the top I've got this 8-point wind thing. So if I'm hitting into a headwind, it recalculates all of the yardage numbers based on my flight and fairway model. This is always for flat ground, but it does take into account the wind. And you might be wondering why there's no wind strength indicator. That's because I wrote this app to get the wind data from the internet that is applicable to the golf course where I'm a member, and so this is the wind speed now at the golf course where I play. This is the headwind yardage book. This is the tailwind yardage book, and I can resort them by carry or total distance depending on what I'm after. So you can see from this yardage book the kind of problems that I have. So I've got 3 clubs with the same carry distance, and that they don't separate too much depending on whether it's headwind or tailwind. There's a little bit of separation there, but in the tailwind, like, there's no point in me carrying 5 wood driver and 3 hybrid. I should just pick whichever one of those I'm most confident hitting, and then leave the other ones at home. And yeah, so that there's only really a separation in a full headwind condition, and that's because the 3 hybrid is the only one that gets proper height for a golf shot. The others are lower, so they're less wind affected, and so that might be a reason to carry them, but it's also a big flaw in my game at the moment. And then if we look further down, you can see there's a relatively negligible difference between 6-iron and 7-iron. 4-iron, I'm hitting worse than either of those two, so I just probably shouldn't have that in the bag at all under any circumstances. And then I've got pretty big gaps between 8-iron, 9-iron, 9-iron pitching wedge, gap wedge. Those are all sort of wider gaps than you'd ideally want, I think. And that's still true if we switch it to headwind, which, the wind doesn't really affect the gapping so much, but it affects how far obviously the distance things are going to go. So, yeah. So anyway, this is designed for on-course use, that I'll be stood there. I'll feel which of these, like roughly the wind direction relative to where I'm standing compared to where I want to hit. I'll pick the appropriate option. Then I can look down the carry column if that's what's important because of bunkers or lakes or whatever, and I can look down the total column to make sure it's not going to run off the back of the green. And you can see in these numbers the kind of difficulties I'm going to have playing golf with this with the swing and bag that I've got here. So I've got generally 15 yards difference between carry and total on the irons you'd use for approach shots. I've got 15 plus yard gaps between irons on the carry distances as well. So if the greens are only 10 yards deep, there's a chance I don't have a club that will even land on the green. And if I do have a club that will land at the front of the green, there's almost no chance the ball will remain on the green. It will just roll off the back. So if I could hit it higher and perhaps less far, I should perhaps take that trade. Anyway, yeah, this is the yardage chart. As you can see, it's not quite filled in. I haven't hit very many 3/4 swings. This only takes into account the this is based off the median shot that I said was a good strike when I was practicing. So the median launch conditions of all the shots that I hit, I've got 3 to 5 shots per club where I've hit a good one to make this table. So these aren't the numbers from any one thing, but you can also see in the left-right, when I switch it to just headwind, that I've got a big problem with involuntary shot shape on some of these clubs. So the ideal would be all of these would be zeros on the headwind and tailwind charts, but they just aren't. And then I would be using the, right and left wind, or head right, head left, which are probably the bigger swings, potentially the bigger swings, to see where my aim line should be as the wind changes. That's what those are for. But I need to do a bunch more work on my swing and club delivery to get like this 6-iron, where I need to aim 38 yards left of target. If I was hitting that into a headwind, that's a pretty abysmal state of affairs. I mean, tailwind doesn't make it much better. Yeah, so only if the wind is off the left does that come down. Anyway, that's my yardage book. You've seen the practice system. I built it with the hope that it would improve my scoring and my ability to play golf. I think it helps. I haven't had the system long enough to have played significant numbers of rounds with it to be able to say, yeah, it has brought my scores down. I haven't played, I've only just finished building all the software and getting the practice shots in to get the yardage book to work. So I haven't actually been able to play 18 holes since I've done that. I'm optimistic though. One thing I noticed particularly already is on the course I no longer feel like I'm under pressure to learn about how conditions affect the golf ball so much, because I trust this flight model and so forth to its predictive power, that I can learn that during practice. So I don't pressure myself on the golf course to correct for wind. And I wouldn't say it's not given me an instant intuition for how I should adjust the aim of my shots as I'm playing in different wind conditions, but just seeing that the wind rose and how chaotic it can be, and knowing that as I'm stood on the course, I have no way of knowing what the actual wind speeds are up above the tree line, or even above the ground if there's no trees. It's correlated to what I feel on the ground, but it's not completely related. I have to what it's enabled me to do is be a lot more forgiving about of myself when I hit a shot that clearly I see in the air is affected by the wind in a way I didn't anticipate. Having seen how big an effect the wind will have, and how it's not random, but how chaotic or unpredictable from the ground that will be, lets me forgive myself, and that makes golf nicer to play, and it stops me, I think, learning the wrong stuff while I'm out on course, which is definitely another tendency that I had before. Anyway, I hope this has been somewhat interesting. I've done nothing that the existing launch monitor vendors could not have done. I've just chosen to do it, and they've so far chosen not to do it. So if you want this, ask them thank you for watching. I hope you found it interesting and potentially informative, and enjoy your golf season. Cheerio.